What's going on, everybody? If you followed me on social media for the past couple years or talked to me in person or smelled me after being out at a site, you know that I'm pretty into composting. For the past couple years, I actually worked for a composting company where I learned the ins and outs of all things compost. I get a lot of questions from you guys all the time about compost, trying to learn more about it. So today I want to show you guys how we're going to compost using a 2-bin system that I built for a client out of recycled wood, mostly recycled wood. So stick with us and let's learn how to compost. When you're building a backyard compost system, it's best to put that system near where you're already collecting organic matter. You can see off to the left side of our screen, there's a pile of yard waste. And to the right of the system is a compost tumbler. So kitchen scraps are going straight into the tumbler, while yard waste is going straight into that yard waste system. It's important to have areas where you can hold material so that you can actually pull them out when you're ready to make a pile. The boards in the front of the system are meant to keep the material inside while keeping pests out. The first thing that we're going to do before filling up the bin is put cardboard on the bottom. The cardboard will keep any weeds down and prevent you from having to dig them out before filling it up. Now we're going to add a layer of yard waste at the bottom. The yard waste, along with the cardboard, is going to provide you with your source of carbon. Carbon is very important when you're making compost. Your compost blend, when you're making it, should be a 3-to-1 ratio of carbon-rich materials to nitrogen-rich materials. In our case, the carbon-rich materials are going to be yard waste and some cardboard, and the nitrogen-rich materials are going to be food scraps. You can see that I'm using a pitchfork here. When you're composting, really on any scale, it's helpful to have a pitchfork with you, because a pitchfork is going to dig through yard waste especially a lot easier than a shovel will. When you're adding yard waste, be careful for sticks and heavy brush. That's going to take a lot longer to break down, and unless you break it up or grind it, you may want to just let it keep composting in your yard waste pile. Adding moisture is vital to making high quality compost and also making compost quickly. I would say most of the time when people ask me why their compost isn't heating up or breaking down quickly, it's because they haven't added enough moisture. You need at least 60% moisture at all times in your pile for that material to break down. So every time you add material, you should also water. This is especially true if your pile is going to be protected from rain, and this will be the only way it can get water. Although I'm not a huge fan of compost tumblers, because I really don't think what you're doing is making compost when you fill it up with food scraps, it is a good place to store food scraps from your kitchen until you're ready to make a pile. Again, this isn't really composting when you're putting food scraps in a tumbler, but it's going to keep pests out, and then you can mix it with some carbon. Once you've created that nice carbon bed at the bottom of your pile, then you can start adding food scraps. Food scraps are going to stink, so that's why we kind of want to put them in between carbon-rich material to help soak up some of those odors. You'll notice here that these food scraps were kept in compostable liners. I took those compostable liners out because they're not going to break down very quickly at this scale. I could spend an entire video talking about compostable liners and compostable plastics, but I'll save that for another video. If you have some available, putting some old potting soil or even some finished compost on top of the new pile that you just created will help speed up the composting process. Remember, when you're creating a compost pile, all you're really doing is creating an ideal environment for microorganisms, fungi, and insects to decompose the organic matter that you're putting into that system. So putting some finished compost or some recycled potting soil on top is going to help kickstart that process as you water it in. Another thing you can do to help speed up the compost process and ensure higher quality material is by covering your pile with a breathable dark fabric. That's going to help prevent UV rays from harming any of the organisms in your pile that are doing the work for you. It's also going to help keep that pile dark. You got to remember, these organisms thrive in the forest floor where it is wet and it is dark. So you want to replicate those conditions.